Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for another R.C.W. Top 10 episode. Sorry for the little chat in the corner. This is a bad place, so just ignore that. It's just a bunch of setup commands. It'll probably be done once I reveal number 10. Anyway, this week, we're going to be counting down, by a popular demand request, the top 10 rivalries. You probably already knew that because you probably read the title. I'm surprised you probably haven't skipped over to see all the ranks, but I'm glad you're watching. Let's skip out to number 10. Coming in at number 10 is a rivalry, surprisingly, that never had a one-on-one match between the two. But the feud and tension that went on between the two was high profile. Coming in at number 10 is Flaco versus King. These two, King Panther, to clarify, sorry. It is King Panther versus Flaco. They both feuded for the NXT title. The matches were scheduled week after week to happen. But King Panther didn't show up one time, and Flaco didn't show up one time. And Flaco was too laggy to fight him, and back and forth the things went, and they never really fought, but the tension between the two and the rivalry building caused it to be one of the most anticipated matches that never happened. Coming in at number 9 is a rivalry between two teammates on and off again in two or three separate factions. It is Kids versus Beast. These two had their first confrontation, their first title confrontation, at Elimination Chamber, where Beast and Kids were two of the 6 members. They were part of the Corporation and Nexus at the time, mostly Nexus. So they had each other's back. Kids used Beast, some people would assume, and Beast kind of assumes himself, but they were teammates, and it's what happened. To eliminate every other competitor, and the Beast and Kids fared at the end, and Kids walked out the champion. After being robbed of his United States title victory for a shot at the R.C.W. Championship, and failing to capture the R.C.W. Championship, he went into a number 1 contendership with Viper, one-on-one. Kids came in and interfered the match, and caused it to be a double disqualification. Then, at that point, at the time, Board of Directors member Brooksy came out to announce that it will be a triple threat at WrestleMania. Beast and Kids would have their confrontation the night after due to Beast lagging out of WrestleMania, and Kids would walk out RCW champion, thus ending their rivalry. Coming in at number 8 is a rivalry that also involves Beast, Butch, Rock, Dean, whatever you want to call him, and is less complicated than the last one. It is Beast versus Viper for the United States Championship. Beast won his first title after he beat a fellow competitor at the arena sometime in mid-November. He then had the opportunity to fight the United States Champion, who I believe at the time was a 4-time United States Champion at the time, and he beat him. Viper, one of the best legends of the company, former R.C.W. Tag Team and multi-time United States Champion, former Intercontinental, had been beaten by that guy that everybody thought was a jobber and could go nowhere, and Beast led on a storied career from that point forward. They had a confrontation at the Royal Rumble where Beast had an extreme lag issue, and Viper took advantage of that, claimed the United States Championship back, and then at Road to WrestleMania, Beast got his rematch clause against Viper and was able to claim the United States Championship. So for the time being, unless the rivalry opens back up, which it very well could, Beast is currently the leader in that rivalry. Coming in at number 7 is a rivalry that's going to come potentially to an end or keep going as big as it may be. It is Eddie versus Mattis, Cena versus Lesnar. This rivalry replicates the one in WWE, where the two fight off for the championship, but instead of a WWE World Heavyweight Championship, the two are set to square off in a normal Hell in a Cell match, and together, along with Y3 Roman Reigns, in a Hell in a Cell match for the United States Championship. It is untold how big this rivalry could go, but it started at Night of Champions when Lesnar made a huge return after a month or two's absence. 2 months absence. No, 1 month's absence. My apologies. Just trying to recount. This rivalry is complex and goes back and forth as it goes. At Night of Champions, Lesnar would make a return 1 month absence to attack the C Nation and momentum-building Cena, who had the United States Championship and a title defense later that night. The two will square off at a Hell in a Cell, and we'll find out who's going to lead this rivalry early on. Coming in at number 6 is a rivalry that involved members of the Corporation, but the Corporation was not successful at winning the rivalry. But it's not really the Corporation. It's Legion of Doom versus Degeneration X. Now, I imagine Degeneration X is going to have something in the comment section to say along the lines of, "Oh man, we should be higher on the list. I mean, it was a top-notch rivalry," and I'm not saying it wasn't. But once you see the rivalries up here and how big they really are, you'll realize that this rivalry was pretty good. It caused the end of two of the longest title reigns, the Raw WWE and the World Heavyweight, and could have very well been the end of the longest reign in history, R.C.W. title reign held by kids when Ness went for the R.C.W. title. Flame, as sort of a supporter of the Legion of Darkness, ended Eddie's World Heavyweight title reign, and King, one of the lead members of Degeneration X, was able to beat Brook for the Raw WWE Championship. Those at the same time, DX took out LOD, which was also known as Brookheads at the time, at WrestleMania for the Tag Team Championship. Team DX was able to overcome the overwhelming odds of Brookheads and defeat them for the Tag Team Championship, and then, yet again, to become the undisputed Tag Team Champions at Extreme Rules when they beat them both for the Tag Team title and the World Tag Team title to become the first ever unanimous Tag Team undisputed champions. Coming in at number 5 is Ethan versus Beast. After Ethan walked away the unpredicted King of the Ring victor when he defeated so many people in the King of the Ring tournament and beat Ness in the finals of the tournament to win the World Heavyweight Championship. Beast then previously had his Money in the Bank briefcase that he made a trade with the chairman of the board to get a tag team title match and the World Heavyweight Championship match at SummerSlam. Beast, one person that everybody thought could do it, but probably wouldn't. He actually overcame the odds, even though it looked crushingly against him. Beast was able to claim the World Heavyweight Championship to finally realize his goal and dream of being world champion in this company. Then he lost it at Night of Champions, is taking a break currently, and this rivalry could open or could be over with Ethan walking away the victor in this rivalry. When I say there's victors, I just mean who's ever's doing better, so don't take offense. It's just how it's going. Coming in at number 4 is a rivalry that some people won't realize how big it really was until I tell you all about it. Coming in at number 4 is Madness 320 versus Agent Cool, the Best. These two started off fighting for the Intercontinental Championship when Agent was the record most dominant Intercontinental Champion in history. Madness was never once able to beat Agent and lost his last chance match at the Intercontinental Championship. Madness then would target a separate title, the United States Championship, and then eventually went on to win the Raw WWE Championship. Madness would then end up fighting off against Ness to re-win it, and after that, he thought he had it in his grasp this whole time, but Agent won the number 1 contendership for the Raw WWE Championship, and those two collided at Night of Champions in one of the most anticipated, one of the most epic proportioned match in history, and those two fought, and you can see it on the R.C.W. network at Night of Champions. Go back and watch it. I can't pump it up enough. It was an amazing pay-per-view, wall-to-wall, balls-to-the-wall action. It was insane. So when those two had their possibly final last collision, Cena and Edge, a real-scale rivalry in the WWE. Agent walked away the Raw WWE Champion, and Madness would branch off into a separate rivalry, which was already on the list, Eddie versus Madness. Coming in at number 3 is the one and the only Divas rivalry on this list. It is Sport 123, or I Sporticus, as she is known as now, but mainly during this rivalry known as Sport and I Brooksy. These two collided several times, many for the Divas Championship, when they were the only two active Divas amongst that one that we all thought was a Diva, but really did have nothing relevant to a Diva, Ricky Green. And once Racunia retired, those two were the only major Divas at the time. They fought for the Divas title. After Sport won the Royal Rumble and Brook won the Raw WWE Championship, like Rock and Stone Cold, they had their collision at WrestleMania. Two people colliding, two people who overcame the odds as Divas, but Sport was able to capture the Divas title off of Brook, but Brook was able to retain the Raw WWE Championship at WrestleMania. They had two collisions that night, and then Sport became inactive thus far afterwards, and made Brook one of the only active and, impressive Divas of the roster today. Needless to say, I think Brook walked away a little bit better in that rivalry, but both walked out with some substantial victories. Coming in at number 2 is the infamous Ness versus Eddie rivalry. This started pre-WrestleMania when Ness was angry that Eddie would hold his title by what he thought was complete and utter cheap shot. Eddie claiming that it was complete skill and completely in his control that he would retain the championship. He put the title on the line at WrestleMania, the one, the only grandest stage of them all. Where better to have a rivalry this momentous, this big to collide, but the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania. Well, Ness had the match in the bag for the better portion of the match. Eddie was able to move away and stall some time against Ness and hit the final critical blow, and Eddie walked away the World Heavyweight Champion. Those two would later become teammates in Degeneration X, but it was all a ploy, as Ness, somewhat jealous of Eddie's success, the fact that Ness was not able to capture a world championship, and Eddie had the second longest world title reign in history. Ness would then target Eddie after Degeneration split up, and Ness and Eddie would have another confrontation at a near pay-per-view, not title anyway. I believe Eddie walked away that victor in the match, and that rivalry walked away with Eddie being the victor of the rivalry. Coming in at number 1 is a rivalry you probably all expected to be on this list. You just didn't know it'd be number 1. But once I unveil all the complexity of this rivalry, you'll realize that it really does deserve number 1. This list may be revised in the future when there's more rivalries, but the number 1 rivalry, it happened at SummerSlam. It happened at Night of Champions. It happened 2 days after SummerSlam 2013. It happened at Hell in a Cell, somewhat at Bragging Rights, and somewhat at TLC. They were part of a tag team together, multi-time tag team champions. It is Flames Dude 44 versus Kids Rock 4. This is one of the most complex rivalries R.C.W. has ever seen, one of the longest spanning. It all started at SummerSlam 2013 when Kids Rock 4 and Flames Dude 44 won the tag team championship. Flames was able to win the Intercontinental, and Kids was able to win the R.C.W. for the first time. Kids then would put the R.C.W. title on the line 2 days later after SummerSlam, and would lose to Racunia and Flames. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused because this rivalry is complex. You'll see why. At Night of Champions, Kids was to revoke his rematch clause against Flames Dude 44 for the RCW Championship to get a one-on-one match with him for the RCW Championship. Flames would then lose the title to Ethan, and Ethan would lose it to Viper, and Kids would face Viper. Viper beat him. Kids got his rematch directly that night because he asked for it, and Viper was a nice guy and gave it to him. Kids beat Viper for the RCW Championship, and Flames and Kids had a collision, but not for the title at Night of Champions, one-on-one, which I believe Flames walked away the victor, leaving Kids only spiraling down as he could never beat Flames at a pay-per-view. Then at Hell in a Cell, with the odds stacked against him, Kids as the champion, Flames as the challenger. Flames challenged Kids for the RCW Championship, but that was not all. Kids was to fight Flames for the Intercontinental Championship. Kids lost to Flames earlier in that night for the Intercontinental Championship, and Flames walked away holding the Intercontinental Champion. It looked very, very unlikely that Kids was able to retain the championship, seeing as he could never defeat him at a pay-per-view, and Flames, surely enough, walked away the RCW Champion at Hell in a Cell. Kids would get his rematch, the Raw, directly after, and would beat Flames for the RCW Championship. That would be their last collision for the RCW Championship. Dun dun dun, or would it? But at Bragging Rights, with the new arrival of Flame 321 and Rad Randy Undertaker from ROW WWE, Flame 321 would take on Rad and Kids for the RCW Championship in a triple threat, with Flames at ringside for both ROW WWE superstars. He aided them to victory, and Rad eventually walked out the RCW Champion that night. Rad would hold it all the way till TLC when Kids would recapture it. But Kids, angry at Flames at the time, would put Flames' World Heavyweight Championship into jeopardy. Then he would put it in a match, a triple threat with Viper, with Flame 321 and Flames Dude 44 trying to defend his title desperately. Kids at ringside trying to help both other competitors that weren't Flames Dude 44. Flame 321 eventually overcame the odds against Viper and Flames Dude 44 to walk out the World Heavyweight Champion. Flames would then recapture it out of jealousy. Flames would eventually recapture the championship, and Kids would reclaim the RCW Championship back where they felt it belonged. They were tag team champions 4 times throughout their friendship and rivalry. Then, at SummerSlam 2014, when everybody thought it was over, Kids and Flames would collide one last time for the RCW Championship. Kids walked away the victor in a controversial match. But nonetheless, Kids walked out the R.C.W. champion that night, and their rivalry could very well come to a close, or could have another chapter yet again for the rivalry as Flames targets the R.C.W. championship. Thank you, RCW Universe, for checking out this episode of RCW Top 10. Make sure to check out other of your favorite RCW Top 10s. Who knows? We may have done one you wanted to see. Make sure to check out shows daily on the RCW network and many, many, many more things, all for just $9.98. I hope you enjoyed. My apologies for the explanation. It was all just improv. I didn't know what to say, so I was saying it all as best I could. So you get the general gist of the rivalry, and I'm Kids Rock 4. And I approve this message.
I'm Brook.
That was hard!